hello and welcome to the show. This week's Failrace versus the community. We are on Forza Motorsport 5 racing B-class cars with 4-cylinder engines. Our first race was at the Sebring Club Circuit, and as you can see, lag was already being a problem. This was one of the worst, at least certainly starts of the races for lag. It was terrible. Everybody had lag. Everybody on everybody's screen, every car was jumping and flying around, so it wasn't anybody's fault as such. There's an Integra and an Astra that were lag crashed off down this first straight. Yeah, I can only show you the start from my point of view because otherwise the cameras will try and follow a car that's lagging and jumping all over the place. It was a terrible, terrible opening couple of laps here that was very much survival. I find myself trying to go around the outside of a red S2000 and somehow managed to make the move stick. Overtaking here was terrifying because you were never quite sure when a car was suddenly about to jump across the track. You had to be lucky, essentially. You had to hope that you could get away with it. Again, I'll go around the outside of another S2000 around the final corner. My Civic was being a pretty good car, actually. I was pretty happy with this Civic as we come down the start-finish straight. Yet, a pretty damn scary opening lap with a lot of cars broken. You will see my vehicle is the only one without any sort of visual damage. I'm not sure how many cars had suffered damage. I think quite a few had. But when the game threw the cars together, it just assumes that there is damage on there, sort of in the replay. So yeah, it was a horrible, horrible mess. And then there was another huge shunt down the back straight. I was trying to get to the inside of a Lancia, get a wheel on the curb, then slam on my brakes and chuck my car off the road to try and avoid a spun Mini. The Mini then gets collected by a couple of S2000s and a few other vehicles. The Lancia's got a little bit lost. It was a messy, messy start of this particular race. The upshot of it all is somehow my Civic survived undamaged, and I ended up in 4th place, 16th to 4th in 1.5 laps, somehow avoiding all of the chaos. Yeah, I got a little bit lucky in that particular one. At the front of the field, and things were pretty damn close between a Mazda MX-5 that was a bit quicker through the corners and a Honda S2000 that had all of the straight line speed. Sure enough, the S2000 gets to the inside. We think the Mazda tried to do a bit of a cutback, a little bit of laggy, jumpy cars. Mazda finds himself across the grass, never a good place to be. Very easy on Forza 5 for you to just dip a wheel on the grass, and it kind of sort of drags your car off the track. Very annoying if you've just run a little bit wide. The Mazda gets away without losing too much time on this particular instance, trying to find a way past the Honda. The Mazda is up the inside through the next corner, and there's a little bit of lag and a little bit of bumping around going on with the cars. As I said, very, very tough making an overtaking manoeuvre stick when you're never quite sure where somebody is. As we round the final corner, the S2000 runs a little bit wide. This is very easy to do on this particular track, and despite its slightly less straight line speed, the Mazda can pull alongside, but he is going to be stuck on the outside for turn 1, and that's not an easy overtaking manoeuvre to pull off. It's a long way around the outside of that first corner, and the Mazda just wasn't quite far enough alongside. You can try and cut back to the inside out of turn 1, however the Mazda doesn't have the acceleration of the S2000, and the Honda can scamper away at the front. There wasn't a huge amount of action in this race, in all honesty, considering I think 5 or 6 cars were utterly destroyed, and most had damage of some description. Overtaking was pretty much who had the least damage would get the manoeuvre done. Here we see a Dodge Neon with the world's worst rear bumper trying to get past a Lancia 037. The 037 just went a little bit too defensive, and the Dodge can get a better drive out of the corner. The Lancia then just dips a wheel on the grass, trying to keep it on the inside for the final turn. Couldn't quite keep it on the track, sort of runs out a little bit of grip. And the Dodge, I don't think I'm ever going to say that sentence again, a Dodge Neon has overtaken a Lancia 037. But there we go. Yeah, as I said, very little went on in this particular race. The MX-5 that was in second had a spin and dropped back down to 4th. I would then close up on the back of the leader, and it would take up until the second to last lap that we're on here for me to really get right behind the S2000, but overtaking was a little bit difficult. We had very evenly matched cars. Fortunately for me, the S2000 just pushing it a little bit too hard, had a wheel on the dirt out of the final corner, and I could draw up alongside. But as I said, we were very even straight line speed and handling wise. I had to be brave. Me that was stuck on the outside, I was a little bit ahead, but you don't really want to be on the outside of turn 1. But I didn't really have much choice. This is one of my best opportunities to get past, so I keep my car around the outside. Unfortunately, a bit of a lag bump would see the S2000 slightly flung off the track, and that would promote my Civic up into the lead. Yeah, little bit of lag assistance on that one, so it made that overtake a little bit easier. As I said, the MX-5 had dropped back down into 4th place at this stage, was trying to fight his way back past an M3. Again, the Mazda better through the corners, but the M3 faster in a straight line, and the Mazda was trying yet again to do the spectacular around the outside of the first corner. This time Mazda much further alongside, almost makes it work, almost gets it done, but just lacks the straight line speed at this particular moment. The BMW is just too quick accelerating. You can see the amount of gap the M3 will make up before the next corner. The MX-5 is far too far back, sorry, to have a dive into this particular corner. So yeah, can't do much about it. But then you'll also see the amount of gap that the Mazda's closed up through that particular turn. At the front though, it was my Civic that would take the victory. In a rather, I think 5 or 6 cars, as I said, were completely destroyed. There was a rather high attrition rate, and many cars, if they weren't utterly destroyed, were broken to some extent. Yeah, not many of us survived that one undamaged. The AIs then all get completely and utterly confused at the first corner. The MX-5 would end up in 3rd, passing the M3. Our second race, we would go to the Bugatti circuit, a track that I really don't particularly like, but I don't think we've ever driven it in a versus the community, so I thought I'd give it a go. Yeah, even if I don't particularly like it, we'll give it a drive. The first corner, or this second corner section, I had no idea quite what to expect. It's an interesting section that, yeah, who on earth knows what might happen. Through here, we're following a Kia Ceed, that there are just cars every which way. It's pretty much too wide throughout the entire thing. The Ceed is rather close to the back of an Integra, and M3 gets it all a little bit wrong and ends up taking out of a Mini. Just the tiniest of bumps over that crest set the M3 off, and yeah, that took out a couple of cars. It is a tough first section around here. A lot of hills, a lot of cambers and so on to be dealing with. The Kia Ceed is up the inside of avoiding an accident, and Integra has a little run-in with a slow Mitsubishi Evo of some description. I think that was an 8 or a 9 or something. Coming down towards the back straight, you can see a Toyota's just vanished off the front. The Ceed's was having a look around the outside. The Integra outbrakes himself. Ceed dives back up the inside. A nice cutback for the Kia, and the Ceed has survived well enough to make it up into 2nd place. Not quite as crazy at opening lap as we had at Sebring, fairly crazy nonetheless, but lag wasn't being as much of a pain. You can see the top 4 had already made a pretty decent gap back to the rest of us. I'd had a rather eventful opening lap as I was pulling up alongside an Integra trying to find a way past into this. It's a nasty chicane, this one. A Datsun in front gets things a little bit wrong. The Integra tries to manically avoid the Datsun. I end up stuck on the outside. Another Datsun has a much better drive than the pair of us of that particular corner. We're almost making it 3 wide through the next turn, which is never a good idea. I'm going round the long way past the Datsun, up the inside for the next bit. Datsun's now trying to cut back to the inside. I've got the Integra in front of me that I'm trying to find a way past. Think about having a look into the final turn, but don't really know this circuit well enough. A little bit of lag for the Integra as it randomly goes up on 2 wheels. The Integra runs a little bit too wide out of the final corner as well, putting a wheel on the dirt at slow himself. I think it was an Evo in the background. Did the same thing. Again, another place that's very easy when you're pushing it just a little bit too much to run a bit wide, put a wheel on the dirt, and that will slow you down. So I found myself in the lead of this little train of cars coming up towards the chicane. It didn't last for very long. The Datsun had a dive at the first corner, and I really struggled through these opening few corners. And now the Datsun has the lead of this train, and the Integra is now right back behind me as we go through, I think, probably quarter 4. Yeah, I will say quarter 4 on that one. And this little group would remain close for quite a while. The Datsun would have a little off, and the Integra would get to the front of the group after slowing me down. I would then proceed to try and find places to overtake. As as nobody was really that experienced with this particular track. So yeah, finding places to overtake was sort of all new to to most of us. I managed to get back up the inside around the final corner. The Datsun had much better acceleration than the Civic, but the Civic had better straight line speed, sort of like its top end speed was better than that of the Datsun. So as we came down sort of the start finish straight, I could get the position back. Is a little bit scary that close through that particular corner. I'm now on the inside, outbrake myself a little bit, but that means the Datsun's got a long way to go around the outside. Changes his mind, trying to cut back on the exit of the corner. Doesn't quite get far enough alongside. I'm going very defensive into this next corner. My Civic really struggled around this turn with understeer. The Datsun was trying the long way around, but couldn't quite make the maneuver work. I just managed to fend him off on this particular lap. Further up, and there had been a bit of a coming together between the Kia Ceed and Honda S2000 that had damaged both of their cars, which slowed them down. Not a huge amount, but they were gradually dropping through the field. They weren't going down without a fight, though. The Blue Integra was trying to make his way up the order. The Ceed wasn't making it too easy, as the Integra is now having to try and cut back on the exit of the corner. Still can't quite get it done. He's now stuck on the outside for the next turn. Again, the Kia not making it easy. In the end, the Kia just can't quite get it. I mean, you can see how much the Kia is bouncing around on broken suspension. Cars aren't supposed to quite handle like that. And in the end, the Kia just runs out of grip, and the Integra fires up the inside. And it wouldn't be long before me and the Datsun would follow suit. And again, the S2000, you can see it wiggling around down the straight, which just ended up out wide at one corner. And all three of us then would fire past and get that position as well. It was an interesting, as I said, us three would remain close throughout the race. It was an interesting little battle that we had going on. The Datsun was far quicker than me through the opening sort of four corners, but the latter half of the lap, my Civic would start to sort of claw it back, and it's a similar story with the Integra as well. I was quick through the final section, but not so good through the opening part. I'm not sure if it's the car or my driving, probably a bit of both. To be honest, I got much better exit out of that very nasty chicane. Again, you could see the Datsun was having troubles through here, judging by the amount of smoke coming into the front of shots. I then get my Civic up the inside this time round as we come up towards the final corner, just far enough ahead. I didn't really feel the need to go too defensive. I mean, as we're fighting amongst ourselves, we're just letting the Integra get away a little bit at the front. I ran very dangerously close to the sandpit. You can get away with running a little bit wide through there. I was on the limit on that particular. I wouldn't want to be doing that regularly. It was very, very close to my car getting stuck on the sand, and I have a decent gap back to the Datsun coming up towards these first few corners. I just couldn't quite get the line right through here, and lost all of the nice gap that I had. And then we come up to the corner where my Civic really struggled. No matter what I did, I just couldn't get the Civic around here quickly, especially when I'm having to try and defend from the Datsun that this time is successful with going all the way around the outside. That's a tough place to do that overtake. It's a horrible off-camber corner. That's a good overtake to get your car all the way around the outside there. But now the Datsun's got past me on that particular part. Now we come to the track, or the parts of the track where my Civic liked a little bit more. Elsewhere, there wasn't a huge amount going on in this race. The field was just a little bit spread out this time. It wasn't so. There were a few broken cars. In this little battle, a very fast in a straight line BMW was struggling around the corners, trying to keep up with a much better handling Subaru. I mean, you'll see the amount of time this BM is going to make up down this back straight. Just not quite a long enough straight to have a look at the inside into the chicane. But yeah, there was the field was quite spread out. It wasn't the worst spread out we've seen. A lot of the time the cars would sort of see the vehicles in front or see the vehicles behind and so on, but there wasn't a huge amount of overtaking going on elsewhere. At the front, the Toyota had led for a large part of the early stages, then spun around, dropped back to second, and took until the final lap to close up to the leader. It was another Integra that was leading. I'm not sure if it's an Acura one or a Honda one. Either way, it was the Integra that was leading, but on the final lap the Toyota was right behind him, the Integra running a little bit wide through the final couple of corners up towards the final turn. The Toyota's got one chance really to get to the inside, the final corner out, drag him to the finish line. Unfortunately for the Toyota, he clipped the inside of there's some very, very large sort of sausage curbs almost, very bumpy, that threw the Toyota off the track on the final turn. So it was the Integra that would take victory from the Toyota in second, and the blue Integra would end up in third. The third and final race, we would go to the Nurburgring GP circuit, another track that we haven't driven around for a little while. The first corner is another scary tight hairpin that we've often seen many a shunt on. I decided my best option was to hug the inside, and that kind of worked. There was a spinner further back, but most cars made it through okay. There wasn't too many broken vehicles, there wasn't horrible lag, and yeah, most people made it through. I went around the outside of an Evo and then got myself stuck on the outside of a Mercedes, thinking if I could keep my car there, I'll be on the inside for the next corner, which is where you really want to be. The Mercedes managed to keep his foot in and somehow stayed around the I didn't expect the Mercedes to manage to keep his car there, and now I'm stuck on the outside for the next corner, not where I really want to be. I gave the Mercedes plenty of space. I promptly managed to outbrake him anyway, so I'm just going out wide for no particular reason. And again, we'd all managed to survive the first lap relatively well at the front, and it was a BMW that led the way from a Mini with a Datsun in third place up towards the hairpin for the first time. This was by far the best race for lag. There was a bit of lag in the second one. This one there really wasn't too much. I think there was one lag crash incident. Otherwise, this was pretty good. The Mini, gets a much better drive than the BMW. They're almost going too wide through this very fast chicane. You don't want to go too wide through there. It's a very, very scary corner. BMW gets a much better drive off the exit of the chicane. Tries to get to the inside of this corner, but isn't quite fast enough. The Mini's just got a little bit too much acceleration for him. And the Datsun had a very poor run coming on to this back straight, allowing the Subaru to catch up as they head towards the chicane. It's a different chicane layout on here than there is on Forza 4. They use the much tighter chicane, which we're always worried about people forgetting about. The Subaru goes to the inside. It has a little bit of a bump from the Datsun, but the Subaru gets the position into the chicane, and then we see the acceleration of the Datsun yet again up towards the final corner. The Datsun can get up the inside, slightly outbrakes himself, runs a little bit wide on the exit. The Subaru is back past, and then all the acceleration from that Datsun as they come down the start-finish straight. Although the Datsun isn't that fast, sort of top speed-wise. Once it gets into sort of fifth gear later down the straight, it just kind of runs out of straight-line speed. Subaru is on the inside, but can't quite get it stopped into the first turn. Runs a little bit wide, gets a big slide on, the car gets all twitchy, and yeah, the Datsun gets away with that one, and then things get a little bit hectic further back. Yeah, this is the further back bit. I was in an almighty scrap over various positions. It's 3 wide into the first hairpin. Amazingly, we all get out of the other side fine, which is very rare. Celica had all sorts of problems getting twitchy on that particular corner. I'm now stuck on the outside of turn 2, which is not where you really want to be. Evo's trying to get out the inside. I'm trying to now cut back to the inside of the seed, while there's a Celica that slightly outbrakes himself a little bit, gives me a bump. I end up giving the seed a bump. The Celica then has a little bit of a touch with the Evo and ends up pointing the wrong direction. And somehow I've come out of this in front of the Kia. In front of us, though, there is a group of cars that are squabbling over a position. There's Mercedes trying to go around the outside of a Honda. That's a tough place to go around the outside. The black Mercedes is in front of us. The Siege trying to get to the inside on the exit of the corner. Somehow we all cross over there without having a crash. There was millimeters to spare between all three of us on that particular one, and then we proceed to mug the Mercedes of his position. Me going up the inside, the Seed going all the way around the outside. I think that's one of the most impressive muggings of positions we've done, going around the hairpin there with no contact at all. That's what you can do if you all give each other enough space. We got away with that. The Mercedes ends up out a little bit wide across the curb. I'm a little slow off the top of the chicane. The Seed then's around the outside in another impressive manoeuvre, just gets it done before we get to the corner. I'm again a little bit wide on the AstroTurf, trying to get to the inside. That was the weird lag spike that would kill 2 Subarus that were up a little bit in front, which was a shame. It was the only lag we really had in this particular race. You can see a Subaru off to the side there with a destroyed engine. That was a frantic couple of minutes for me and a few other cars in that one. Again, the field would remain pretty close in this race. As we come into the hairpin, there was an Escort Cosworth that was really struggling for straight line speed. Got a tiny bit of a bump from a Celica trying to make up some position. You'll see that the Ford was good through the corners but lacked the straight line speed, and the Toyota gets brave. It's too wide around the chicane. Yeah, that's a scary manoeuvre. Doing that one, it's not a manoeuvre that I would particularly advise. It's a tough corner, just getting around that chicane quickly, but fitting two cars through it is, yeah, not an ideal overtaking place. But people were finding a way past. Towards the front, the Mini had vanished off in the lead. The closest battle at this stage was for second place between a BMW M3 and a Datsun. As we head again up towards the hair, most of the action here was going on at this particular hairpin. Normally it's the first corner where we get the overtaking. This one, it was more towards the hairpin. The Datsun has a huge dive. BMW sees him coming, gives him space. Datsun's going to run wide on the exit. The M3 is back up the inside, and just the tiniest of taps between the two cars is enough to send the Datsun onto the gravel. Yeah, that's a little bit of an odd one. It is a tiny tap between the two vehicles, and the Datsun is just fired off on that particular corner. As I said, throughout the entire race, the field remained fairly close. The front, sort of the top three, did sort of vanish away in the lead a little bit, but the rest of the vehicles were all just about within sight of each other. You could always see the car in front or the car behind in this race, on the most part anyway, which is good. There wasn't a huge amount of overtaking later on, but there was always vehicles around. The Honda S2000 gets a very scary moment through the chicane. The Mercedes, just sort of capitalises on that little bit of a bump. That's not a moment you want to have oversteer at. That's really not a moment you want to have the car suddenly let go. It's a fast corner. It's one of those corners that's almost just about flat out depending on your vehicle. Yeah, having the back end let go there is not ideal. Not ideal at all, but everybody got away with that one just about. At the front, it was the Mini that was going to take the victory, having got to the lead on the opening lap and then driving away from the rest of us. Certainly helped with the rest of us all rather viciously scrapping over places. Yeah, Mini was miles ahead of the rest of the field. The BMW would end up taking second place, with the Datsun coming in third. My Honda would get fourth. I had a first and 2 fourths, which is not too bad for me racing on Forza 5 when I always start at the back of the bloody grid. And the AIs, of course, would forget how to use the brakes, which is just standard. They always just chuck the cars around after we've crossed the finish line. So yeah, it's a shame about the lag in the opening race. The third race at Nurburgring was fantastic fun. There was an awful lot going on in that particular one. However, that is it for this week's video. The next Failrace versus the community, we'll be back to racing on Thursdays. This one will be on Thursday the 8th of January. We'll be driving on Forza Horizon 2 with A-Class Fords, playing some playground games. We are not going to be on Storm Island. We're going to be doing the playground games on the normal Horizon 2 map. If you would like to sign up and take part, then you can go to our forums. There will be a link in the description. Find the Failrace vs. the community section, and that is where you sign up. The races will be taking place at 7 PM GMT time. That is it for today, so thank you very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.